product. Oh, thank you, Temi. I totally forgot that. So Temi is a high-impact product manager who specializes in crafting, launching, and growing technology products. From strategy to execution, she has a track record of developing and executing product strategies in high-risk, low-information markets. Starting her career as a developer for Chevron Nigeria, she spent the last 15 years in multiple roles, gaining deep experience in creation of product for Africa. During her career, she's helped to scale the growth of online travel as the head of digital execution at wakanow.com. She was also very instrumental part of the team that helped launch Nigeria's largest online marketplace at the time, Konga.com. We all know that. She's advised and created strategies for FMCGs, fast-moving consumer goods companies, and oil companies as a management technology consultant for KPMG, the Big Four. Temi is currently working to help bring payment products to life as a senior product manager at Paystack, where she's responsible for developing the company's in-person payment strategies. Temi's varied experience in her career is mirrored in the personal projects she's launched. This project includes Sell It to Africa, a website builder, Tales from the Savannah, a series of children books focused on telling African stories, on Segmented Ventures, a themed event company, and the Startup Hacker, an online community to help would-be entrepreneurs launch faster, quicker, and cheaper. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Temi Giwa. I hope I pronounced your name well.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't pronounce it properly, so everyone gets a pass.
But Temi, before you start, I need to introduce someone to you, and I know you've met, maybe you've seen in person or not, but that is Tomisin Agbaje. She's been the chief facilitator of this whole program. She's handling everything from hand to hand. And all this wouldn't have been possible without her. She actually made the intro, made it all happen. And I just have to say, so Temi, meet Tomisin, and Tomisin, meet Temi if you have not met before. So that's me having to do that. So over to you, Temi.
It's nice to meet you. Yes, I'm a big fan. I think if you check your DM, you probably see me there. I'm watching you from afar, so I'm really happy to be here today. Have a great one. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm terrible with DMs. I think if you reached out to me on Twitter, that's probably like the single worst place to reach out to me, because I check Twitter like once every 3 months.
Oh, okay. I think I'll shoot at you on Instagram. That'll be better.
But you have my email now, so.
All right.
Awesome. So I don't know how you want to do this. I don't know if you want to do it like question format, or if you just want me to like.
So you can do a presentation at the end of it. Then we have a lot of questions. So yeah.
Oh, I don't have a presentation. I was just going to speak through it.
That's fine. That's totally fine. So we would listen to you, speak about, some of the expectations, all that. And then, of course, we will then compile the questions. We've got some questions that, we've compiled. We also expect questions from, from the audience as well. And so all that will be done all through the session. So yeah, we'll have the floor.
Okay, so sorry.
If you guys have questions, please just put them in the chat, and then we'll take it after Temi's done. Thank you. Temi, you can go ahead now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here, and I'm very, what's the word? Flabberwhelmed, overcasted. Like, I'm a little bit shy, so. Yeah, but thank you for having me. We're here to speak today about like what product managers are looking for, what companies and hiring managers are looking for when they're trying to hire product managers. And it's interesting, as I was starting to think about this and talk to this, I was like, I did a poll of the PMs that I knew, so about 28 people, and I asked them, of all of you in your current role as a product manager, how many of you have been a product manager before? And the very interesting question was, out of 28 people, 5 people said, I have been a product manager before my current role, which is very indicative of the industry. Product management, it's not necessarily new, but the path to product management can sometimes be very not straight. Like the way is never straight. Like my first job in product management, I literally tripped and fell into it. I was a developer, and then someone came to me and was like, "Oh, I think you'd be a good product manager." I was talking to the CTO of Conga at the time, and he was like, "I think you'd be a good product manager." And I was like, "Kini that was products what?" I've never heard of such a thing before. And then I went and I read it and I looked it up, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I think this could work. This sounds more like what I want to do than what I'm currently doing." So I say I like to tell people that story because I think a lot of people have I don't want to call it unrealistic, but a very weird expectation of how they're going to get into product management. So before I get into that, I'm going to say this again. Product management is one of those fields where regardless what level you are supposed to be operating you'll be operating at a very senior level. You're a decision maker, you're an influencer, you have a lot of responsibility thrust upon you. So a lot of times when people are trying to get into product management, especially at the entry level, it can be incredibly, incredibly difficult, because if you just finished NYSC, how is anybody going to trust you to run a company? But that being said, it can also be very easy to get into. So I will now start going into the things that people are looking for when they're trying to hire product managers, that I have seen in like the past in my career and in talking to hiring managers. One thing that people are looking for is a high degree of autonomy. Product managers are supposed to be able to operate independently. If you're the kind of person who always needs to be told what to do, when to do it, and how to do it, then this may not be the career choice for you. A lot of times, product managers are the last line of defense. You are supposed to be the last person. You are the one who everyone comes to for answers. Whether or not you have those answers is nobody's business. You either have them or you go find them, or you figure out who has them and go and get the answers from them. So just being able to like be very autonomous and work independently is one thing that hiring managers look out for. And one of the only ways, and I say this because like you'll be interviewing as product managers, one very good way to show this is to show how you've been able to take control of situations in your own life. And it doesn't always have to be work. It can be you lead a department in your religious organization, or it could be you saw a problem in real life and decided to help fix it, or decided to figure out how to fix it. It could be something as small as, oh, in my apartment complex, everybody was always complaining about generator payments and we're never being paid. Like the bills were spiking all over the place. And I just figured out how to organize the community so that we could pay a simple amount. Everybody knows how much they're going to pay at the end of the month. Everybody signs here and we all agreed and we move forward in our lives. It doesn't have to be like I went and started my own company, which helps. Product managers, a lot of product managers tend to be ex-CEOs because there's a lot of alignment in those two types of roles. But anything that you can do to show that you've been like independent and autonomous is very, very important. The next thing I would say that hiring managers are looking for is a great deal of empathy. You will be listening to angry people, happy people, sad people, disgruntled engineers. Product management is a role where you're supposed to give away praise and accept failure. So if something fails, it's your fault. If something succeeds, it's everyone else's. To everyone else's credit but yours. So it can be a really, really hard role. So if you're in interviews, you want to kind of demonstrate that you are empathetic, you can understand when people are frustrated, you can also get to the root of their frustration, because that's the work. Like you have to figure out why customers are frustrated in their current, however they're solving their current problems, and how your product can help with that. You have to figure out if you're in tech product management, you have to figure out why your engineers are not delivering on time and how to motivate them to deliver on time. So a lot of empathy is really, 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 really important. The last thing I kind of wanted to highlight is I think the thing that a lot of people who interview for product roles don't do well, and the thing that like kind of flags to me that this person may not be ready and needs a little bit more experience is when they focus on tools rather than the outcomes. Especially with new product managers, it's very easy to go into an interview and be like, oh yes, I know how to use Jira. And the thing I tell people is Jira is not the job. Like, you are not hired to create Jira tickets. You are not hired to, you're not even hired to write user stories, even though it's a part of your work. That's not what you're hired to do. Fundamentally, you're hired to solve problems. And that's the skill that most people want to see. Most of the product managers I know didn't use Jira until they started their first role, right? So yes, it's nice if you already know the tools that the organization is using, but no one, absolutely no, okay, let me rephrase. Any job that will take you as a product manager, that won't take you as a product manager because you don't know a specific tool, you don't want to be working for them anyway, because they don't even understand what product management is really about. So it's about solving problems, being empathetic, communicating extremely well. You will have so many people that you're supposed to be talking to that if you cannot communicate clearly and effectively to multiple different types of people across multiple journeys in their life, it'll be very difficult for you to be a product manager. The last thing I will say, and I know that was going to be the last thing, but I want this to be the last thing, is I usually explain product managers like this. If you take a bucket and you fill it with, and let's say you have developers, and developers are stones. You throw stones in. You have customer service, another set of stones. You throw them in, they're a different shape. You have maybe your CEOs and legal and HR, and you throw all these people into the bucket. And that is a corporation, and that's an organization. The water that you pour in to fill the rest of the bucket, that is who product managers are. We are gap fillers. So you need to demonstrate that you are able to be extremely flexible and fill the gaps that are missing in your organization. So if your development team is very process heavy, you have to figure out a way to bend. If your development team is not process heavy, you need to figure out how to get them to adhere to processes or not, or figure out what works for them. Basically, if you can show in an interview that you are relatively, you're smart, everyone who's going into, most people are smart, to be honest, depending on what subject area you're looking at. But if you have a lot of empathy, you have a lot of autonomy, which means you can work on your own. You have great problem solving skills, and you actively solve problems in your real life, not just saying, I know I have problem solving skills. Like, you should be demonstrating that in your real life on a regular basis, going into your community, finding problems, solving them, and you have a lot of flexibility, then odds are any company will be lucky to have you. So that's my little speech on what I think hiring managers are looking for when they're trying to hire product managers. I can take questions now.
All right, thank you, Temi. I think one thing that you mentioned that you used is that a lot of PMs didn't start as PMs. Like for me, for example, I started as a customer success person. Before that, I had done a little bit of HR, done a little bit of data, and I'm like, you know what, I think I'm ready for something different. Before I got into my product role, I think what helped me the most was I'd worked really closely with the product manager for that specific role. So when it was time to leave the company, he just gave me a recommendation that I think this girl is going to be good. She has already, in a way, started doing the job. Now it's time for you to make it official. So I think I like that. So I think the first question is, while Imole was in your introduction, he mentioned that you started from Techhaven. And my question is how did you find yourself in Paystack? I know you touched about it a little bit, right? And I ask that question because there are a lot of people doing projects, some people are doing HR, some people are doing accounting. So what was the journey like, and how did you find yourself as a senior PM?
That's a really good question. How did I find myself in Paystack? So for me, I was one of those children who doesn't really have much sense. I wanted to do everything. I had no focus in life. I literally would throw myself into any project, any idea that I thought was interesting, which is kind of how I ended up being a developer, because literally it was at the very last hour that you could declare a major in my university. was when I said, okay, I'll be a developer. I tried literally every degree under the sun. Like at some point I did nuclear engineering, like it's just all over the place, right? But one of the things that I always knew, like as soon as I went into tech, I knew I loved it and I knew I was going to do something in that area. I found out about Paystack in 2016, which is very close to when they actually were established. And it was a product I just loved. But I also knew that I wasn't ready to work there quite yet. So even though I knew about it and I had met a couple of people who knew, like the founders who worked there, I knew I wasn't ready yet. There were things I wanted to do before I moved to Paystack. I wanted to learn about marketing, which is why I went to Wakana. I wanted to learn about like how the big boys do it, which is why I went to KPMG. And then finally, when I was ready, I kind of curated my CV and then I went into my network and I was just like, I need to find somebody who knows a product manager on the team and just hand them my CV. And that's how it happened. Luckily, I was extremely lucky that somebody I knew, somebody I had worked with when I was a product manager at Conga also knew Shola, so they were able to hand over my CV. That being said, that is my story, and it is very not representative of product manager stories. So I don't want it to come across like, oh, you need to know somebody in the organization. No, most people are dying to hire product managers, good product managers. The real problem is that a lot of people mistake what product management is and don't do well in product interviews. So yes, my story was like, here's a CV. But like most of the product managers in Paystack are not necessarily like that. I think I like what you said about migrating from customer service, because that's one of the ways that I've seen has been very successful. If you have an existing job where you have the opportunity to work, not necessarily with, but if there are product managers in your organization, one of the most brilliant things I've seen someone do, someone like came up to me and be like, hey, I want to be your chief of staff. Like, I want to do all the dirty jobs that you don't want to do. Like anything that annoys you, and everyone has the parts of the work that they don't like. And they were like, anything that annoys you, I want to take off your desk, right? Yeah. And in the process of that, they started, because you have to give someone context before you give them a task, right? So in the process of giving them context, trying to explain why this is important, trying to help them do it, they were learning a lot about products. So when they wanted to start doing product interviews, it was very, very easy for them to demonstrate all these things I had said earlier. So if you do happen to have someone who you know that is a product manager, like just be like, hey, I want to be your PA for a month, a week, or however long you're willing to commit. Yeah, so that's it.
You made a great point. Side note, like I tried to work at KPMG at some point. I'm like, yeah, I was not that child that knew what she wanted. And I wasn't driving, like I just wanted, oh, what they're like, and I wasn't finding it. So for everything that I've done so far, I think I kind of stumbled on it. And I decided, okay, I'm going to start liking this thing. And for me, that's how product started, because I just needed that change, and it just happened to be that change. I think you made a great point saying that the chief of staff, and then like, oh, can I be with you for like 1 week? For me, that's like one advice I give to people trying to transition, because once you shadow a PM, you kind of understand how their day goes, and it gives you clarity into what the role is like. Because some people just come and think that, oh, product is the simplest non-coding thing, and I'm very sorry to disappoint you. It's not. Like, I feel like it's difficult. Because you're managing people, you're managing the product, you're doing a lot of things at the same time.
And you have no authority to do any of those things.
Exactly. So what you have is just influence. So you don't have any power, like, do you get? So it's like, I'm telling you something, I'm trying to persuade you. It's either you take it or you leave it. And you have to make do with that decision. So that's that. You mentioned something about problem solving. And, you know, for PMs, like, that's a really, you don't necessarily need to be the best problem solver. You need to be able to listen to people and take their, what they're saying and see if it's the best way to solve a problem. But as a PM, like, what would you say is the best way to improve that muscle or grow that muscle of problem solving?
Start a company. Honestly, and I tell people this, like, if you want to get into product, like, the first thing you should do is go and just start a company. And in 2022, it's easier than ever to do. Find problem solving, like anything else, is a muscle. The more you work a muscle, the better it gets. So the reason I say start a company is because a company will constantly bring problems to you that you need to solve. Customers are not happy. You don't have enough staff. You don't have enough money. You don't have enough, like, there are always problems in a company. So it's a great way to get a lot of problems in a lot of different fields to solve. And to be honest, product managers are like, another title is like internal CEOs, is what some people call product managers, right? So you might as well just do that without waiting for permission to do it. Like, just go and do something, because honestly, most of your life in product is going to be like, I just woke up one morning and I need to change everything. And if you have to ask permission as a product manager, you're very close to failure, to be quite honest. The way I see it is that people should trust you enough to know that when you're making decisions, that you've thought them through, you've done the work. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't communicate your decisions to other people. I'm saying that if you are going from can I, as opposed to hey, I've done the research, this is what the data says, I have talked to a couple of customers, I have done all this, and this is the reason I want to do this, then you like, that's what people respect in product managers, the people who do that well. So if you start a company, like and it doesn't have to be like a tech company, you don't have to like go and look for funding, anything like that. Start sell hair, like trade, like do anything that forces you to make decisions often, and that's how you flex that muscle. And if you don't have the funds to like start a business, just go into your community. If you live in Nigeria, even as you open your eyes in the morning, there are a billion problems that Nigerians have. Like, we are very lucky, in quotes, that we live in a place that is so broken that you will never run out of problems to solve. Some problems may be too big, but it could be a small thing, like figure out something for the people who live in your house. Automate something that your boss does that, they were doing manually. There will be so many problems for you to solve. And that's the only way to flex that skill. There are lots of books you can read. There are lots of like videos you can watch. There are tutorials, there are courses, and you should do those because those give you the framework for problem solving. But at the end of the day, it is very much reading about going to the gym and going to the gym are different.
Very different.
If you don't go to the gym, you will never build muscles.
Yes. Oh my God.
You're laughing because I said muscles.
Yes. It's still relatable, actually. Yes. So for me, again, right, a lot of these things are very practical and it's really understandable because, I was trying to switch into product. I kept reading and reading and reading, but there's the experience that doing it gives you rather than just reading books. Like, it's better when you read a book and you're in the experience, like you can just transfer. But if you don't have the experience, like just transferring the book knowledge to actual experiences, like, it's hard, right? I think I really like that. And that thing that you say, I know a lot of people, they say that PMs are like the CEOs of their product. Some people like it, some people don't like it, right? But one thing you find CEOs do is like they're constantly trying to innovate and solve a problem, right? So you don't have to register your company, just like she said. It could just be like, oh, this person has a problem. How can I make your life better? That's how like some of these companies came to be. And I'll give an example of Bitcoins and Temi, right? I think the way you literally started Bitcoins was, people were trying to get crypto. And it was like, and we're having so much issues. And he's like, oh, how can I solve your problem? And then he built the first version and gave them to test it out. And that's how like it now actually became a company. So again, I will also mention that you need to be very observant, right? If you're observant, you would see that there are literally a lot of problems. It's like picking which problem you want to solve. That's one thing. You mentioned earlier about speaking to someone in your circle and stuff. What's the best way you would say for people transitioning to PM to get their first jobs? And I'm going to say this because there are a lot of PM apprenticeships or internships, right? A lot of people are looking for experienced people. I have a lot of people asking me that question. Can you hire me? I'm like, I'm not a company. I can't hire you. I'm sorry. I do give you advice, or if you want to shadow me, that's fine, right? But I can't hire you. So what would you say the best way is for people to get their first roles in product?
I would say the best way to get your role in product is to go and find a job that is not in product. And that may seem very harsh, and you can get a job in product, but like you said, there are very few entry-level product roles. Most people are looking for senior people, and it's because of the nature of the work. These are decision makers. It is very hard for a company to hire an entry-level decision maker. So you would have two options. You either start your own, so it doesn't matter if you're entry level. You either find somewhere very, very small that it's okay that you're new and figuring things out, or you almost have to like get another job that you can segue into. Customer service is one of my favorites because there are so many transferable skills. If you work in customer service, the empathy thing, you've proven. The problem solving, easy to prove. But if you want to go direct into product, let's say you don't have any work history and you want to go directly into product, honestly, I would say slide into the DMs of as many product managers as you know, ask them if their companies hire interns or associate PMs or something like that. There aren't that many. I'll tell you for free, like, don't come to my DM, Paystack doesn't do it. And I can tell you that one for free. I've never seen us hire. I've worked in Paystack for 3 years. I've never seen us hire an entry level PM. We tend to only hire senior product managers. But if you come in, a lot of the, like, I'm trying to count, maybe like 10 of the 20 something product managers we have now are people that came from our user ops team, which is what we call customer service. So that would be my advice. If you're really serious about product management, either go and start your own like company side hustle on the side, or if you're very lucky and you can find somebody to intern with, or go and find a role that isn't product. Good ones are customer service, sales, and engineering. If you have like, and you don't even have to be a good engineer. I was a terrible engineer. I was a terrible developer. I should not have been doing it. Like, I was smart enough to figure it out, but like, that was not my calling in life. So I would say do one of those three things.
Yeah, I think you made valid points. I would also say that if you're currently in an organization that has PMs, you should probably speak to the head of products and tell them your interest. So by the time there is an opening, or if they're willing to make you an intern, you should do that. And if you have favorite companies, some of them will reply your DMs, but you can try. You never know until you try.
You never know.
Yeah, we have a question in the chat. Someone says, can you please share advice on transitioning from B2C product management to B2B? Interesting question.
That's an interesting question. There's actually one question before that I actually really wanted to like address, and it says, it's from Toby, and he or she says, I'm a program manager in digital healthcare, but we use products already available in the market. Could you suggest any online resource for creating roadmaps? The reason why I wanted to answer this question was because it goes back to my personal philosophy about product management. Your tools do not matter. You can write it in Microsoft Word. Like, it doesn't, like, it, if you want to present it visually, and I struggle because honestly, my roadmaps, I do them in like Notion, which is what Paystack uses for most things. But like, you can do it in PowerPoint, you can do it in Whimsical, you can, like, the tools are everywhere. Just type into Google product management roadmaps, a bunch of things will come out. But the reason why, and I'm sorry, I don't want to single you out, but the reason why this question is so interesting to me is because of what I mentioned about product management. It's less about the tools and it's more about like how you can solve your own problems and other problems, right? So I very rarely recommend tools in general, just because that's my own personal philosophy. But I will 100% assure you that the tool that you're using doesn't matter. But if you are asking for like what you can read about creating roadmaps, You can try Marty Kagan's blog. I really like his work, and he writes a lot about product management. So if you're looking to learn more about like how to create effective roadmaps, then Marty Kagan's blog is like, to me, top gold standard, top tier like writing, very interesting writing as well. But if you're asking the tools, then I would say it doesn't even matter.
Hey.
Sorry, I kind of veered off and answered a question you didn't ask me.
No, it's actually fine. I was going to ask you, do you know the spelling of Matt Kagan so that I could drop the link for the person asking?
Marty is the first name. Last name's, I think it's Cagan.
Yeah,
he wrote the book Inspired, which is a product management book that I feel like a lot of people should read.
I'm adding that to my list. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to drop that link for you asking. And again, I'm going to agree with Temi, right? Because to be honest, these days, it doesn't really matter the tools you use. If you can speak to it, right? Because, so there's this lady I follow. She's the founder of ProdPad, right? And she says that, you know, people typically would do product roadmaps in Gantt charts before, and then you put time to it. And then she was saying that, you know, there are better ways of doing it. Is more about what problem am I trying to solve, right? So I think it's actually less about the tools, but if you're really, really looking for a tool that by all means recommendation, right? I would say maybe you can try Etable. It might work for you, it might not work for you. ProdPad, yeah, those are like the two I've tried. But then again, as Temi said, it's less about the tool and it's more about like the problem that you want to solve. So don't focus so much about the tool you're using. So the second person, which was the question I wanted to take first, was transitioning from B2C product management to B2B.
That's it's an interesting question. And at first I was like, I don't have an answer. And then I realized, wait, I've done it. So I must have an answer. And my answer would be like, the skills that you learn with product are transferable. If you want to I cannot force, like, I can't speak for every situation, but like I don't know that you would have much trouble from a product management perspective, transitioning from B2C to B2B. If it was sales, then possibly, but the skills are fairly transferable. So I would just say, like, apply everywhere you can. Highlight the wins that you've had with B2C and start thinking about how those transfer to B2B. And I think for me, one of the things that like really resonated with me when I was like stressing out about like B2B, because I'm a B2C person, despite what I do today, is someone said, you have to remember that B2B, it's still people who make business choices. They are still individuals. So the same tools work with them. It's just that it may be like a little bit harder because you have to deal with like gatekeepers and stuff like that. Yep. But from a product perspective, like, it's still people, the same rules still apply because it's people that make those decisions anyway.
Yep. Okay, thank you. So for me, again, I don't know that there's any like really big advice. It's just that you're moving from selling to one person to selling to an organization. Really, that's like the difference, right? So in the same way that you would speak to people in B2C, that you speak to people in B2B, although you might be dealing a lot more with the salespeople and the commercial team, because in most companies, and I speak from my own context, they're the ones that are, most times will speak to the customers, and then they're your face basically, you get, and you're speaking through them. Sometimes they will bring you into their calls and ask you to come and stand. But that, then again, is my context, not like every other person's context. So someone says, this is a great question. I have this question as well. What is the difference between a TPM and a PM? So I'm guessing TPM here is Technical Product Manager.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So a technical product manager is someone who has technical experience. I don't want to say development experience. So for example, the difference is that you know more about the technical aspects of the product you're building. This is usually very helpful when you have a very technical product. So for example, if your product is artificial intelligence, then a technical PM would be great if you had like understanding about how neural networks work and stuff like that. So the difference is basically how much knowledge you know, but it doesn't have to be like engineering knowledge. I would consider a technical PM a doctor who is building medical or healthcare related products, or they are building for actual doctors. So as long as you have a level of technical expertise, then it is. But a lot of people just use it to mean like, oh, I was a former developer, so I understand code and writing code and engineering, and I can be a technical PM, but it kind of depends. So yeah, it most of the time you'll see technical PMs when companies are building extremely technical products, and it's important to know the technicalities. If you're trying to build a Boeing 737, you need to know aeronautical engineering.
Yes,
kind
definitely.
of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just to build on that question, would you say it's for PMs, for every product manager, you need to learn how to code? And this might be a very funny question because everybody says no. But there, you know, you're relating with developers a lot, right? And developers will bullshit you and lie to you, right? Which is why I asked that question. Do you think coding is necessary for PMs?
Like most people, I will say no, but you're right. If you not knowing how to actually write code doesn't mean that you can't understand how code works and the kind of things that are possible. You need to get to a level of proficiency or be smart enough or understand people enough to know when something a developer is saying doesn't make sense. Like you have to have a sense of, if a developer tell you this is going to take 6 months to build, or my favorite, it's not possible. I know that there's nothing that is impossible. It may take a long time. The engine may not work or something. Like you have to be good enough or sure enough or confident enough to be able to ask level 2 questions. So I would think of if you're asking someone like, okay, how long is this going to take? You say, the developer tells you 6 months. Level 2 is like, why? They will say, oh, I have to do this and this. Okay, level 3 question is like, okay, walk me through how you're thinking of the algorithm and how long this will take. You don't have to know any, like a line of code to go through that thoroughness, but I will say you have to know enough to have that level of thoroughness in all the conversations you're having. So some of the best PMs I know have never written a line of code in their lives.
Thank you. Thank you, Temi. So for me, it's more like, for me, the only way I think I understand these coding concepts is like after, with experience. The first time you lied to me, the second time you won't lie to me, right? Or you might lie to me in a different way, but then again, I already know that this is what you say. And that thing is, as PMs, right, we need to learn to always ask on the why question. So if you tell me this is not possible, I need to be able to say, if you tell me why, I need to be able to go and tell my stakeholders the reason why you're not going to be able to do this with evidence. So do you understand? So that's that. We have another question here. This is a bit long. I work as a software engineer in an early stage startup. And I would like to
skip one. There's a question about marketing.
Oh, sorry. What of marketing? Can you transition into PM from marketing? How hard is it?
You can transition from PM into, that's a beautiful thing about PM. You can transition from literally anything. Marketing, sales, customer service. Cleaners have become product managers, right? Like there's no field that you can't transition into PM. For the question of how hard it is, it's actually may not be as hard as one may think, because there are a lot of transferable skills, at least from my perspective. Marketing is all about understanding people and like helping them come to like a buying decision or a purchasing decision. It's understanding how people operate and how people work. And that is extremely useful when you're building products, learning what makes people act the way they do is incredibly useful for PMs. So I think it would be, the level of difficulty would be, how easy is it for you to translate your current activities into things that are useful for PMs? So it's all packaging and phrasing.
I'm not see, one thing is, in interviews, you just need to be able to position yourself and sell what you have done as transferable, as you said, right? So I think marketing is not that hard, right? Because like, if you're in a tech company, you've had some relations with the PMs, you're thinking along with the PMs and how to position the product. So in a way, like, you can say you had tiny bits. So it's now you may be exaggerating it to make you say, yes, I've used this product. But don't lie, because they'll find you out and I'll be there.
Exactly.
So,
and you can always like research product marketing, right? And see where that takes you as well.
yes, product marketing is great. So this person.
Sorry, one more thing, like, and you should like look out for like growth PMs. So there are different types of PMs. There are technical, there are like, but growth PMs are a thing. And you could, if you're already in the marketing space and you enjoy it a little bit, then you may look at becoming a growth type PM, which would have even more transferable skills for you.
Okay, I hope your question is answered. If you have more questions, just put them in the chat. So this person, Tolu, is a software engineer, and this person wants to transition, but the person said, I don't think I enjoy it very much. It makes me very angry. So the person would like to shadow his or current PM, but the work is very stressful and I don't think I can take any more work on. You have to find time. What do you advise? Also, happy to hear you were an engineer.
So I think my first question would be, which work makes you angry, the engineering work or the PM work? Because if the PM work is already making you angry, my guy, this may not be the if from a 5 making you angry. When you get inside, you will just be permanently and filled with rage. Like, PM can be one of the most rewarding, but also the most frustrating jobs. Again, because like I said earlier, first things first, in most organizations, the role of a PM is not very well defined. Basically, you fill the gaps, you are everything. So if talking to customers was what was annoying you before, then when you now become a PM, it will be talking to customers, selling, being responsible for PIV, answering stakeholders. Your former engineers will now start to annoy you as well. Like, there'll be so many things that will annoy you. So if it's PM that's annoying you, then this may not be the right role for you. But if it's engineering that's annoying you and you want to transition into PM because you think you'll enjoy that more, gosh, I don't want to say find the time, but I will say start looking at what the PMs do and start practicing it in your head. 10 minutes before you go to sleep, just think of, okay, what did my PM do today? Okay, she set up the Jira board. Okay, she said if you have stand-ups and you get insight into what the PM does on a day-to-day basis, just think about it really hard and think what that would mean for you and think about that deeply. So for example, she said, she went to talk to 10 merchants. Like, I wonder how she found those merchants. Did she schedule those calls by herself? Did someone else schedule it for her? What would she have asked them? If I was in that room, what would I have asked them based on my product? So I would start there. And if at that point, the answers you're getting are not things that you think you'll enjoy, you can stop without going further. But I will say, since you're already an engineer, it's actually one of the easiest ways to transition into product. Talk to your organization and say you're thinking about it. Talk to your product manager and see if maybe you can dial back a little and maybe I don't want to say doing less work, but like let them know and they may be able to work on something for you specifically, depending on the type of organization you have.
Yep, you should always pick up on your problems. Again, you could start by just volunteering for stand-ups. You might attend stand-ups, so if you want to help, can I help you with stand-up today? Then
exactly,
just like little stuff, inserting.
There is not a product manager in history that if you go to them and say, I want to take something off your plate, that they'll say no.
By all means, please. We have another question. I currently work as an insurance broker, trying to transition into product management. I found an internship as a PM with a virtual law library. Interesting. I would love any advice I could get because I feel lost or I feel like I'm not doing enough. I have another question. Yes.
That's a very good one. Like, because honestly, I have never met a product manager that didn't have imposter syndrome. I have never, and this is like, you'll be like talking to product managers at Google and Spotify, and they'll be like, yeah, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like, I was on a call with the lady at Stripe, and she was like, and I was just like, no. You are supposed to I'm coming to you for answers. You can't be asking me questions. I don't understand what's going on here. So there will always be that niggling feeling in the back of your mind because that I'm not doing enough. I don't know enough. Everybody knows better than me. Oh my God, I'm failing. I'm not saying like it shouldn't always be there, but for the vast majority of product managers, it is there. And that's the reality. I think look at your metrics and see how your product is performing based on things you have done. And that helps with that a lot. I think also read as much as you can. The more I have read, the more I have realized product management is really just a common sense job. Like it's a lot of it is just like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And then someone else has restructured it in a way that like makes more sense. Like read about, I would say the things that I like to read about when it comes to product management, I like to read about power and influence, like just how to influence people without coming up across as skeezy or like weird and just like whatever. Consumer behavior, just understanding the way people react in different circumstances to doing these things. And anything to do with like ideation, like how do you come up with ideas? How do you brainstorm? How do you do that? There are a lot of great books about that. My favorite ones are, like I mentioned, Inspired. Hooked is another one. I can't remember who writes that. And then anything to do with like running lean is another great one. So if you can read some of those books in those fields, you start to get a sense of like, oh, okay, I am or I'm not doing a good job.
Yeah, I think Hooked was written by Nir Eyal, and I agree with you. I have a question. I actually had a question, like how do you deal with imposter syndrome as a PM? Because for me as a person, like this is my third year in product, right? Sometimes I have this, wow, I actually know what I'm doing, and everybody's like, here we go again. Like, what am I even doing? You get? But I would say that for me, I think what has helped is sitting down, having a true reflection of my skills, like what am I doing? What are my current skills? Maybe, for example, I want to be like Temi. What kind of skills does she have? Someone in Google, for example, what skills did they have, right? And then maybe try to prepare myself towards that. Just be honest with yourself. Do you get whether you're an imposter or you have imposter syndrome, like you would actually know, right? But I also say that since you're transitioning as well, you should give yourself time to learn and time to grow. I think one thing that happened for me when I transitioned was I was trying to do a lot in very little time. And I was always like talking to my engineering lead, and I was always saying that you need to calm down. You need to calm down, right? Sometimes like you need to take it easy, right? As Temi has said, I would say you should read more. And I can also say that you're moving from insurance to quote unquote law library. Maybe you should read books around that and try to examine other products and see how like they were built. That might help you a bit. But I also say that you should also take it easy on yourself. And maybe you should also have an understanding of what does doing enough mean to you, right? Because in a way, if you say you're not doing enough, it's also a chance for you to push yourself further. Nobody should be too comfortable in any position, but that would be my own opinion. So someone says, I'm just going to give it for you. Can a product owner function as a product manager? Would you consider a product manager as an associate product manager? So I think the question here is really, is there a difference between a product owner and a product manager?
That question. For me personally, product owner, product manager, program manager, really the thing that I have found in my career is that it is very company specific. People use these terms interchangeably, right? So I will give an example of Conga versus Paystack. At least when I was at Conga, we had product managers and we had program managers. Program managers were product managers with wider scopes, right? In Paystack, we have product managers and lead product managers. Lead product managers are product managers with wider scope. So it really, really depends. It would be, there is no, remember, every job title is made up. Someone sat down and made it up. So when it's like, can a product owner function as a product manager? The answer is yes, because people everywhere are doing it. And there is no product Bible or products like whatever that clearly defines this is one, this is the other. There are definitions that different people use. And some organizations take them in one way, other ones take them. I would not worry about the titles too much. I'd be curious to know why you asked that question as well. But for the second part of the question that says, would I consider a product owner as an associate product manager? Not personally. Just the way I've seen those terms used and the people I know as product owners versus product managers. Just in my own experience, product owners are people who like own everything, in that you're responsible for revenue, for growth, for everything. In companies that have product owners and product managers tend to be responsible for the tech and how the tech is built, and product owners are responsible for the entire 360 product. Whereas in organizations that don't have product owners, the product manager acts as a product owner and is responsible for the 360 of the product.
Thanks, Temi. Someone says product owner is a product manager in a Scrum team. That definition is a bit tricky, really.
Hi,
Hi.
Temi.
Hi.
Sorry, can I say something regarding that?
Yes, please.
I think I'll go with what Temi said, because it's company specific. In my own company, we don't have product manager. The last role is product owner, except you have like product owner 1, product owner 2, which can actually suffice as maybe lead product owner. And basically what we do as product owner is we manage budgets, meet with stakeholders. Your negotiation skills must be top notch, because you negotiate with practically everybody. You meet with angry developers, because sometimes they can say that, Temi, sorry, my name is, they call me Temi as well, but they tell me I'm not getting paid properly and what's happening, some developers are like this, paid here, you have to manage and still talk to them in a way that they still feel love and they're not feeling used. Because as a human being, we feel like I'm not paid or compensated for what I'm offering, maybe I'm being used or I'm not valued, something like that. So I feel like it's company specific. So if you're a product owner, you just need to look at your roles, your job description, and maybe if you are looking out for another role or maybe another JD, you might actually function as that. Maybe you won't make reference to it as a product owner, you might just say product manager. Yeah. That's just
exactly
my take on it.
Which is why it's so important, and you're absolutely right, which is why it's so important when you're interviewing or thinking of taking on a new role to ask, especially in product, ask all the questions. How do you guys, this question you've asked, you should ask the hiring manager. How do you feel about product owner versus product manager? Does your organization have both, either, none? What is the relationship? What am I responsible for? Am I responsible for budget? Am I responsible for growth? Am I responsible for sales? Or am I just responsible for delivery? So like it changes from organization to organization. So it's very important to have like a clear understanding before you get in. Otherwise, you enter one point.
Thank you, Temi. I have another question here. This one is a bit tricky. How do you deal with a team of people not keen on growing their knowledge and skill sets? I'm currently filling a lot of gaps, but I need advice on developing people that don't report to me.
This is a really good question, because this is like product management, like the hard part of product management. People who don't report to you, you are responsible for their output. I would say one, talk to them, ask them questions. I personally, like, I'm a fan of, like, if you ask anybody in my team about me, I'm the most playful person. So I'm always playing with people, messing around, joking with them. A lot of times I'll try to have like one-on-one with my engineers as well, so that I know them as people, or one-on-one, like engineers, designers, anybody who works with me frequently. Like, I will have one-on-one non-work conversations with them, even if it's just like 15, 20, 30 minutes, just to know their people. Most people want to be better. And if they're not trying to be better, there's usually a reason why. If you can figure out the reason, so you treat, this is going to sound so slimy, but treat people like products. Something is broken, you need to figure out why, and you can use your product management skills to figure out why. Ask them a bunch of questions, understand why they're not. That being said, as a product manager, one of the things that we don't realize is how much power we have. If you are struggling and you cannot, and you've tried everything, you've talked to them, you've tried to understand, you do have the power to escalate, and escalate as much as you need to. Tell the person that person actually reports to, because it's going to impact your work. If you can't escalate to who they report to, escalate to who you report to. So CEO, head of products, whoever, say, this person in my team, these are the things is not delivering. These are the things I've tried, and it's still not helping. I think someone with authority over this person needs to have a sit down with them. I'm not like, and at the end of the day, you can recommend that they fire people. They may not fire them, they might, but you can actually recommend people to be fired. Like, if it's that bad, and I'm talking about like in extreme cases, because you never know what is going on in someone like. And sometimes we think of firing as this horrible thing, but sometimes some people are not a fit for the organization they're in. Like, if you're not willing to work to 3 o'clock in the morning, you cannot work inside KPMG. Sorry. If you are the person who wants to carry everybody's bag and say, sorry, ma, sorry, sir, you can't work in Paystack. Like, not everyone is a good fit for an organization culturally, regardless of how smart they are. And part of being a product manager is understanding that dynamic and knowing when you can wiggle and when you have to put a hard stop to things and say, guys, this is just not working.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree with you, right? You make valid points. I'll say one thing that works for me is, as a product manager, you don't have to be friends with everybody, right? But it helps that you have a cordial relationship with these people, because they would open up to you, and they'll be straight with you on some things, right? So talking to them in a cordial way might help. But then Temi said something, I'm going to emphasize a lot on that. Know when to escalate. There are some times that these problems are not yours to solve. Like, you've tried your best, right? You've had conversations. People can bear your weaknesses. You've pushed this person. You've pushed and you've pushed and you've pushed. Please and please and please know when to escalate, because if the person messes up, it's your mess up. You're the one that has to clean up. It won't be, is this person that didn't fill their role? Is that, were you able to manage the team to deliver on this particular outcome? That's how the conversation typically goes. Yes, then we have another one that says that in a startup, can you function as a lead developer and also be the product manager?
You can do anything you like. Like, startup. You're lucky if you have 3 people in a startup. Like, so I'll speak about Paystack a lot because that's where I've been the last couple of years. But like, if I think about Paystack, Shola was the CEO, product manager. He was backend engineer. Okwe was head of design, also leading products, doing product work. Like, you can do anything you want. Now, if you're asking if in a startup, if you're early stage startup, you should be trying to be as lean as possible, because odds are you don't even know if the product you have is viable or is something the market really wants that well. So the answer is yes, you can also be the product manager. The thing I will say is, be hyper aware that you are the product manager. A lot of times when the engineer is a product manager, what they end up doing is just writing code ad infinitum and pushing out code because that's what they can do. But you have to remember that product has a very specific role in figuring out what to build. A product manager that releases 200 features that only 10 people use is a worse product manager than a product manager who releases one feature, one very simple feature that 1 million people use. So you have to be very cognizant that if you're going to be the lead developer and the product manager, you have to do the product side. You have to do the talking to the customers. You have to do the road mapping. You have to do the problem solving. You have to do like all the things that having a dedicated product manager would do. So you can just remember that it is still part of your work.
Thank you. I think that's it. I can't really answer because I've not really worked in a startup like that. But you know, as much code as you write, you have to do as much product stuff. You have to make decisions, and then you can't just talk to people as a developer. You have to talk to them with empathy, because there's some ways that some developers will speak. You can't really speak that way, and don't always try to figure out everybody's jobs for them. It's not in your place to do. Someone asked a question: is there a community for product managers?
There are several. It depends on kind of what you're looking for. What's this? There are a couple that I'm a part of. Sorry, I'm just gonna check my phone and check my Slack. I'm sure there are people who are shouting that I can plug. There's Product Manager Africa. There is, where is this thing? There's Product School, which is global. Product Manager Africa is like more in Africa, Nigerian focused. There's Khadija is going to meet me. There's one, sorry, hold on.
Just Mind the Products. There's Product Dive. I think Khadija
Product
was
Dive.
Product Dive, yes. So yes, I think Temi has answered really. I think I'm part of Mind the Product, Product Manager Africa, Product School. There are actually like a bunch of them. You just need to find, or if you want an invite, you can shoot me a message and then I'll add you to the Slack channel. But yeah.
Great.
So
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. So I have a question here. The first one is, how do you approach growth as a product manager? You know, product management differs across organization, different levels. So at what point do you know, okay, this is what I need to do as a product manager to grow in my role? How do I move from junior to mid, from mid to senior, and stuff like that?
I always like, the way I tend to think about it is the biggest one is scope. Am I pushing myself to solve bigger and bigger problems and more scope? So maybe the first time that I'm trying to solve a problem for 10 people. Then I'm trying to solve a problem for 100 people, then 1,000, then 1 billion. It could be revenues as well, like, and scale it across. Maybe the product was 10,000 Naira. It was bringing in monthly revenues. Then all of a sudden, I'm now responsible for a product that brings in 100 million. That is one. Two, I tend to look at what are the people who I admire? What are the things that they are doing and how they are learning and how they are growing, and trying to follow that. I personally like to read. So I read as much as I am physically able to. Yeah, I think those are the things. And then I get feedback from other people. I ask, what are the ways that I am, like, the way I like to phrase the question is, what are the ways that I am failing? Right? So I'll talk to my engineers. What are the ways that I am failing? What are not necessarily the things I'm doing wrong, but what are the ways that I'm failing? And I try to inculcate. I hear that, and then I go and find somebody who's succeeding at that, either in my organization, in the world, or in a book. And then I go and learn and see how to fail less at those things. There's a little TikTok sound that I love that says, you know, the guy goes, oh, practice makes, and then everybody goes, perfect, because that's what we are used to hearing. And he goes, no. And he's like, no, practice makes improvement. And so that's the thing that I keep like having in the back of my head, just like, in what ways can I just be continuously improving and practicing the things that I'm weakest at? So yeah, that's kind of how I put it mentally.
Okay, thanks, Temi. So I have another question here. You've been a product manager for a while. You've been working for a longer period of time. What do you enjoy the most about being a product manager? And what do you dislike the most about being a product manager?
What do I enjoy the most about being a product manager? That's it. I am borderline I'm borderline obsessed with consumer behavior. To give you some context about me, it's like I grew up shy, quiet. I am very bad with social signals. The inner mechanisms of the way people work has always been fascinating to me. And so the parts of consumer behavior, the parts of product I like are the parts that have to do with understanding what motivates people, what makes them choose certain things, why they act in certain ways. Finding those out, especially through data, are very really, really excite me, and I get very about them. The part that frustrates me the most, how long do we have? I think the one thing that frustrates me about product the most is how undefined it is. No, you know what? I take that back. It is how you have to be everything, whether you like it or not. Engineers have the opportunity to say, oh my goodness, I'm not going to talk to customers because I don't like it. I don't have that opportunity. Sales has the opportunity to say, I'm not going to talk to engineers because I don't like it. I don't have that choice. The fact that I don't have a choice, I have to do the things. I have to do all the things. And when nobody wants to do the thing, it comes to me to do it. It can be incredibly frustrating because there are a lot of things I don't like. Like, if you tell me, talking to strangers gives me so much anxiety, but I have to do it because it's part of my job. And it's not the talking to the strangers that I don't like. It's I have to. I don't get a say or I don't get a choice. That's, I think, is the most frustrating.
Relatable. I think for me as a PM, you have to do the dirty job. The one that everybody doesn't like is what you have to do.
Dirty, smelly, stinky.
That's why, sometimes in large organizations, you hear that there's a UX researcher, there's someone responsible for wireframing, but here you do your research, you do your wireframe. If that's what your organization does, you do your data. Because I know in my friend's company, there's a data guy that draws the metrics and tracks, right? But in some organization, you define it, you will track it, you will be sales, you'll be commercial, you'll be marketing, you do everything. Do you get so you feel
and even in organizations where you have those roles, you are now responsible for driving them to do the things.
Exactly. I think also even speaking to people, some human beings are very interesting set of people. They're just interesting. Do you get? And then everybody has different personalities and different ways of doing things. Being that person that always has to talk and being you have to make them see reasons why they should do it. It can be exhausting, but it's also one of the enjoyable parts. I think for me, a win for me is when I built a product and I'm now saying, yeah, I worked on that product. It's me. But yes, I have another question. This is personal, so I'm going to shoot it to you as an email. The one I'm going to ask is, how do you handle stakeholder management? For someone that's trying to improve in stakeholder management, because you're talking to this person, talking to that person, there's this person that is a make or break in your product, there's this person that just needs to know for need to know basis. How do you handle it?
I typically rely very heavily on personal type relationships. That's just my style. Just fostering some kind of camaraderie between the two of us, some kind of you may call it, I don't want to use the word charm because I'm not charming, but I also have a very fine line, and I tell myself I want to be the most polite, rude person you will ever meet in your life. And I say this because a lot of stakeholder management is learning how to tell people who have authority over you and learning to make hard decisions, learning to communicate hard decisions, learning to just to fight, for lack of a better word. So much of stakeholder management is just learning how to fight adequately. And so I optimize for, I want to fight with you, but you still like me. And that's kind of how I handle my stakeholder management. Like everybody should know that I'm coming and I'm ready to fight. But at the end of the fight, we'll still be friends.
Yeah.
Not best friends, or not like I'm not following you to your house to have dinner or anything like that, but like
We cordial.
be cordial, we'll laugh after it. We can have very opposing opinions. So I do that by optimizing, by trying my best to be a subject matter expert, admitting when I don't know, because that's another thing that in the beginning of my career, I struggled with. I thought I had to have all the answers, but sometimes it's fine to just say like, I don't know. Let me go and find out, but I don't have a clue. Like admitting to my failures and my weaknesses. So I do that with stakeholders a lot. Just being like, hey, I messed up here, but this is how I'm going to fix it. And then just generally like remembering that the person I'm talking to is a human being. We're all human beings. Like we all want to work hard. We all want to play hard. All of us want to be on a beach in Zanzibar. There's some things that like we all have in common, and you can use those kind of things to leverage. You can leverage those kind of things to make these kind of connections so that people understand you as much as you are trying to understand them. And I talk too much.
I don't agree with that, but okay. I think for me, one thing that's helped me is I think in a way I just learned to be cordial with people. I'm very introverted. I'm very shy. So most times you might not find me striking the first conversation. But if I know that I need to work with you, I need to know what you like, and in a way be your friend, right? Because it makes working easier, right? But I think there's also a part where you have to draw the line. We're not here to play, we're here to work. Do you get? That helps the stakeholder management, speaking when you need to speak. And I think also admitting when you don't know, right? Because then again, they're able to help you make certain decisions and speak for you in rooms that you're not. So I think that's very important. Thank you. So there's one more question here. We should be rounding up in a bit. What kind of task should you practice regularly? Should one just put up a project and then work on them? And exactly what should a PM practice on? Researching, features, roadmaps?
Good question. I would say, yeah, pull up a project, but I don't necessarily want to, like when I say build a business, I think, and I say a project is very different from a business. A project is a set of tasks you have to do and complete. A business is supposed to be self-sustaining. So you have to think about all the things that go into running a business. Where's the money going to come from? Am I going to hire? Who's going to do the work? Where am I going to find customers? All those things. And all those tasks are very like help you to become a better PM. From a functional, like what tasks should I be doing? Writing is probably the highest on the list. Write and share it with people as often as you can, because you need to be able to communicate with people. Like writing, talking, like it is you cannot underestimate, I cannot oversell how important it is to be able to communicate via speech and via writing clearly as a PM. Like this is one of the things that you will continuously just be doing. You will be writing strategy documents, vision documents, PRDs, this one, that one. Even your user stories, as a PM, you will have a vision and a picture in your mind, and your job is to transplant it into other people's brains in ways that get them excited. Not just that they understand, but actually get them excited. So learning to speak and learning to write are very, very important. Those are like, honestly, researching is another good one, actually. Just learning to extract information from people, customer interviews and stuff like that. Really, really important. Actual features and roadmaps. Personally, I'm not like, a roadmap is just literally, we're going to do this and then do this and do that. At the end of the day, it's not complex. Like if you can communicate properly, your roadmap will be infinitely better.
I agree. I think even for features and roadmaps, is really features are like problems that you want to solve, really. When you say, okay, I have this problem, you say this is the feature and this is how it will work. So I think that problem solving as well. If you just ask yourself, if for example, there's Instagram has in a way changed their app. Just ask yourself why. Like, why did they do it? What could have been better, stuff like that. If you could improve it, then you can, those are where like features come in. So I think the features and roadmaps are like, they're less of the problem. Is you just knowing how to think and asking relevant questions, asking the stupid questions as well. Ask stupid
In
questions.
addition, try to take apart your favorite products. Like if you see a product that you love, try to figure out why you love it, what could be improved. Like just constantly be looking at the world in that problem solving space. Like, ooh, what's special about this? What's not special about this? How, if I wanted this to be better, how could I do it? How do I think this particular thing works? Those are also like I agree with Thomas. That's a brilliant exercise.
Thank you. So I think I'm out of questions now. Sorry, Imole.
Yeah, I've got a question, and I know this may vary depending on the product or the business, as the case may be. But in your opinion, Temi, maybe from your own perspective, what are the most important metrics to actually track post-launch of a feature or product, as the case may be, especially if you have like a new product and you are the PM of it? What are the most important metrics to actually track? It doesn't have to be like an exhaustive list. It just needs to be like, the key ones that you normally look out for.
First, I'll say I'm really happy that your baby's here. Hi. I can't see if it's a boy or a girl, but I just wanted to say hi. The most important, oh God, like you said, it will depend on the product. I wouldn't necessarily advise and say like, oh, these are the metrics you have to use. What I do personally is look at the goals for the product, and that's where all my metrics are derived. So for example, the people who are building Uber they care nothing for profitability, nothing at all. So profitability isn't a good metric for them. They care about like adoption because that's what they want. They want to be in every country all over the world, right? So I think deriving your metrics from your business goals and what you're trying to accomplish is the most important. So for some, it will be revenue. For some, it will be number of active users. And then even your definition of active users will be different from product to product. I don't know that there will be any two products in the world that will have the exact same metrics, because even if two people like Flutterwave and Paystack are both payment processors, if you look at the metrics that Paystack versus Flutterwave is looking at, they will be completely different. So it really, really, really depends on what you're trying to achieve with that product.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Temi. Is there anyone with any question? Or have we answered all your questions? I don't think I missed any. But yes, so I'm going to hand over to Imole. But before I do, again, I have to say that I'm having a huge fangirl moment. It was really nice chatting with you. I'll be messaging you afterwards, but yes, thank you. We have someone's hand up. That is Temi Giwa. Hi, Temi Giwa. You can unmute.
Sorry, I was talking, but I think I was muted. Okay, strange things happen in virtual world. Okay, my question is regarding product management, right? How long can you be on a particular role before you say that you are a senior product manager? Because this question comes to me all the time. How long should I be on the role? Should I be there for 5 years? Because when you look at roles, they'll be asking you 5 years experience, and you'll be wondering how will they get that 5 years? Because in product management, they don't look at, can you write code? You mentioned something about the tool. They're not concerned about the tool. And most of the skills they're going to be asking you regarding in the space of product management are things that you're going to be doing when you start the job. So most times they kind of judge their metric on the number of years. So how long do you think the person can stay on the role before you said, okay, I'm transitioning into the lead product manager, or I've grown wings, I think I need to start eating bones and not drinking milk anymore, Yeah, that's my question.
It's an interesting question. I think first things first, it will vary from organization to organization. But as a general rule of thumb, just for me internally, and this is not product specific, my 3rd year into doing anything, I start to get antsy. my third year into doing anything. 3 years to me personally is enough time to know, to feel like I should be able to talk about this insensibly. Like I should be considered senior. In my mind, like 3 years is about the time where you have probably encountered maybe 70% of the problems that anyone in any role. So if I was in sales for 2 years or 3 years, I think that I've encountered 70 to 80% of all the problems that every single salesperson in the world has. Now, it also depends on your, for me, product management growth is always about scope and the wider set of problems. So senior product managers to me are people who can handle medium to large scale problems. So they can handle they can handle larger teams, they can handle more influential products, they can deal with a lot of the more stressful parts of products, and are not necessarily like, you know what, I think I have a good example. I would say you are a senior product manager when you no longer have to rely on the frameworks and tools that you need as an entry-level product to develop your thinking in a certain way. Once you've hit a point where, so for example, like rice prioritization is a great way to figure out how to prioritize things you should build. Once you hit the level where you can look at 6 features that should be built, and internally, without having to manually type and do the calculations for rice, internally rice it by saying, like, sorry, my phone keeps going off, by saying like, okay, how many people will this reach? How many people, what's the impact? Will it be very impactful? How confident am I about this? And how much effort is it going to take? Once you get to a point where you can, all that is happening in your head, as opposed to having to manually type it, then I would say you're heading towards the senior level.
Thanks for that question, Temi, because I've been asking myself that question for a while, because again, I said this is my 3rd year, right? And I've had recruiters reach out to me for senior roles, and I'm like, am I a senior yet? But then sometimes I find myself doing the work of a senior product manager. And I think that for me, it's getting into that mindset that, you're now a senior. These things come naturally to you, right? You don't always have to go and seek advice, because it's just, you've done it so much that it comes very easy. Like sometimes you need advice, right? But you're able to think on your feet. Like, do you understand? Because a lot of quick thinking, right? There's sometimes you will not know some things, and that's fine, right? But that's just my own opinion on that. Someone has a question. As somebody who wants to transition into product management, but only has a university degree plus customer service experience, great question. Do I need to take any courses or get any form of certification before applying for PM roles?
I have a very controversial answer. Because personally, to me, engineering, product, most tech roles, do you need to have certification? I personally say the answer is no. I have never met a PM hiring manager that said, I am looking for somebody with XYZ certification. That being said, are those certifications and courses good to have? Absolutely yes. Because again, in the early part of your product management career, you will be looking for things to train you to think as a product manager. The things that give you that kind of, to think the way product managers do. And a lot of these courses teach you those tools and frameworks, and like RICE and how to roadmap and 5 whys and customer journeys and all those kind of things. They give you the language and they frame your mind into thinking about it. The problem, and the reason why I say this is controversial, is that the problem that I have, and this is, I'm going to say this, I can't think of a kind way to say this. The problem I have with those courses is that they make a lot of people lazy. So they go in, they take the course, they get the certificate, and I'm like, but why am I not getting any product management jobs? I have the certificate. When those things are supposed to like be flexed in the real world. So you take those things that you've learned and then you go and practice them in your real life, so that when hiring managers talk to you, you're not talking about, oh, I know rice, who cares, right? You know that I have used this to prioritize this in my life. Like, this is how I've been able to impact my community. Because at the end of the day, most people who are hiring PMs are looking for people who can create impact. A certificate is not anybody's impact. So showing a certificate is not a good proof that you're a good product manager. But that certificate can help you create the impact in your life that shows up well in hiring conversations. So you don't need to take the courses. I would recommend you take one, even if it's just like watching about PM on YouTube, going to Udemy. There are a couple of product management schools in Nigeria. Take them, like, don't bankrupt yourself doing it, but like, get them to help you think through these things and teach you the tools, and then go and actually use them, because that's the only time it will be useful to you.
Yeah,
Sorry, I ranted because that's my pet peeve. When people come to me, I'm like, I have this certificate in hand.
I'm not going to lie. I agree with you, because some people have product management. They go to school and study product management. There's some schools that do that abroad now, right? But that you did it does not necessarily make you a master at it, right? It's just a nice to have. I mean, I have AIPMM certification. Okay, what next? That's all. Like, it's just like you're reading book and you're answering questions. Like, that's the certification bit.
Imagine if you would. I love the gym example, because imagine if you go to a gym and the person who is your personal trainer says, I have personal training certificates, but I've never been to a gym before in my life. You're like, guy, you can't help me. You can't read in book this thing.
Yep, I agree. Practice, as you said, doesn't make perfect, allows for improvement. So don't just write certification and you're not referencing it. It's like, how easy does it come to you and stuff like that. Imola, thank you. Go and actually use them. Certifications and lessons learned. It's not enough to have it. One more question. This is the last question we're going to take. How much of a project management skill is relevant to the PM role? How far should I venture into project management? So this person's context is he or she is currently interning in a new startup as a PM. Is PM here project or product? Where the PM there left the day before I resumed, I inherited the whole department, whereas I basically can't write the PRD properly. Wherever I turbo, I see Scrum, Kanban, Agile, Lean. I know this, but it confuses me. How far should I go into project managing as a product manager?
First, I would like to deeply, deeply apologize for this horrible situation that you are in. Because that's a hard place to be in. Well done for coping and being like just sane enough to like be able to wake up in the morning, in the afternoon on a Sunday and like join a call. I would be losing my mind. Project management. First, you have to understand the difference between projects and product management. And this is a question that I get often. Project management is the art of execution. Product management is the art of figuring out what should be executed. Very, very often, product managers do a lot of project management. Should they? Is a completely different matter entirely. But there is a lot of overlap just because the way the role tends to be structured, in that you tend to run a project. So you figured out what you should do, and then you have to actually do it, which is the project management part of it. How far should you go into the project managing as a product manager? I would say 20 to 30%, so not very far, because if somebody's hiring you to be a product manager, then the expectation is that you are responsible not for the execution, but for the impact. Project management is useful because unless you manage the project properly, there'll be no impact. But remember, the core thing you are being hired or being paid to do is figure out what everyone else should be doing that will drive the most impact for your team, for your department, and for your company. So if your company is a startup, and let's say Uber's goal is to have 1 billion drivers. There's a part of project management of, okay, we'll sign up the drivers, they'll do this, they'll do that, they'll do that. I'm managing as a project, but the most important thing you're doing is figuring out how to get them from 1 driver to 5, from 5 to 100, to 100 to 1,000, and what that looks like for your internal systems and for the drivers themselves. So remember that that is the key thing you're hired to do. So you don't have to go too deep into the management of that process. You can outsource it to someone else on your team.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Okay. All right. Person said, thank you very much. I've lost some weight overnight. I hope you get back. I hope you do. If it's not, then good job. But yes, thank you, Temi. I think we've gone through all the questions. Yes, I'm going to hand over now to Imole.
Well, I guess this is the part where oh, okay. Somebody dropped. Okay, Temi Tokwe. Thank you, Temi Tokwe. Well, ultimately, thank you, Temi. Thank you for an amazing session. This was brilliant. Nothing short of brilliance here. Okay, the person says, I'll need to stay in touch. Okay, I'm sure. You can always follow Temi on social media. Temi, which of the social media handles do you prefer people to follow you on? Or platforms rather? Would you prefer?
I mean, I think I'm not a social media person in general. I know, so this is a very hard question for me. I think it depends on what you're looking for. If you follow me on Instagram, I'm sorry, it's Vibes and Inshallah there. Sorry. If you follow me on Medium, I tend to write, but 20% of the time I write foolishness. So you get 80% sense, 20% foolishness. Twitter I'm very rarely there and I very rarely tweet. So follow if you like. I don't know. I still don't understand what people do inside Twitter. But yeah, but Medium will probably be the most useful to you. Okay.
So I'm guessing your handle is still remain Temi Giwa on Medium as well.
Yeah, so I'll drop my handle. It's MS. Actually, I'll drop a link to my Medium page.
No worries. Thank you. Once again, thank you very much, Temi. This has been an insightful session, and every single person on this call, I'm sure we've all learned a lot today. She's dropped the link to Medium account there. You could follow her, and then you, of course, she'll write, and you can always pick up one or two things. And that is what we've got today. Does anyone have any more questions today? In the absence of that, we will be rounding up. Temi, thank you very much. This is the last of the 8 weeks training sessions that we've been having with PMs or people who are actually transitioning into product management. We know we cannot train everyone to become product managers in that 8 weeks, but what we have tried, especially Tomi Singh here, has been doing is to lay that foundation, help people actually, get started with that. I'm sure a lot of people have been having it in mind, like, I want to become a PM. How do I even get started? Just get people started, and then it's up to, to them to actually, take it further. And you've actually today talked about a lot of things that people can actually do to actually take it, further into someone said, are we going to get employment opportunities? I hope so. One of these days, hopefully, we would have a big business soon, and we can employ, graduates of the Techhaven event. But at the moment, we don't have that. But Temi, just in case you know anyone recruiting younger, younger PMs and wants to internships.
So we don't have interns, but we are actively hiring PMs. So if you're potentially interested in being a PM at Paystack, you can send me like your CV or something. I can take a look and we can kind of go from there.
Amazing. Do you, Temi, please, on this call right here, can I share your email address with anyone that may have their CV to send to you for this?
Yes, absolutely. It's Temi at Paystack.
Okay.
Amazing. There you have it, guys. Paystack is hiring PMs, and if you are up for it, please feel free to send your CV and everything else that could get you into the door to Temi at Paystack. She's dropped it in the chat as well. So amazing. Thank you very much. Tomi, you wanted to say something? It's like I saw your hand up.
Oh, it's okay. I was going to say that message Imole if you want Temi's email, but it's already there because the session is recorded.
That's fine. Thank you, Temi. That's really, really good of you. So thank you very much, everyone. Temi, I'm going to reach out to you right after to this session. And thank you, everyone that stuck with us for like 8 weeks or so, or 9 weeks thereabout. Thank you very much. We will still continue to sort of like, keep the community going on WhatsApp and all the other platforms that we have. And yeah, thank you very much, Temi. I'll reach out to you. Tomi Singh, you are the best. Thank you for all that you've done over the last 8-9 weeks. It's not been easy, having to spend, that extra time to do it. But thank you very much. And thank you everyone that has been a part of this and those who joined us today. We hope that you've been able to learn things, and that's the most important thing. Temi, thank you once again. We cannot thank you enough. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. And let's have a lovely, lovely, lovely week ahead. Yeah.
Bye, guys. It was nice chatting.
Bye. Bye.
Everyone.